What's up, YouTube? This is CJ,
And Sarah,
and it's Wednesday, and that means it's time for another Keto
Conversations.
So let's get this started. So this week we're going to talk about 5 things that we wish we would have known about keto before we started. And these are not in any specific order of importance, but they're just things that we kind of thought of and
that nobody really talked about.
Yeah, that nobody talked about, and we probably wish we would have known about a little bit
just
before
have
we
a little
started.
bit of information.
So the first one is that the first month or two of keto can be expensive.
And that's just simply because if you pull open your cabinets and you look at what's inside when you're eating the standard American diet, a lot of it is refined carbohydrates, cereals, macaroni and cheese. I mean, let's face it, ramen noodles are like 33 cents, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you go down those aisles in the grocery store and you do a price comparison, it might seem extreme because when you go and you price things like meat and dairy, cheese, eggs are generally pretty inexpensive,
right.
But those things can sometimes cost a little more up front. And so that there can be a sense of sticker shock sometimes when you are buying fresh food versus a lot of the processed things that you had been buying.
Sure, yeah. And you're also, you may have said this, you're getting rid of food.
Sometimes, that can be kind of hard.
Right, sometimes you're getting rid of perfectly good food.
Right, especially if you grew up in any kind of deprived state, or if you grew up after the Depression or any of those periods of time where food was scarce. It can be a little bit, terrifying.
That you're just going to throw away perfectly good food,
right?
Because you're starting this keto thing. So,
but on the flip side of that, you will find that you become satisfied with less. And when you're eating real fresh food, it is more satiating. So in the long run, because you will be eating less, you'll be eating less often and be satisfied with less food, it will actually become an economic advantage.
Yeah, and there's also the adjustment of, so not only are you getting rid of foods, but sometimes you're buying different food that you didn't have before. You might be buying different seasonings or spices, and those things, it takes a little bit for your stock to kind of build up.
Exactly. You won't necessarily be buying, like if you buy a big jar of coconut oil, it might be $25, but you're not going to be buying that every month. Generally.
Right.
So you might have an initial upfront cost, but then it will all even out because you won't need to buy that every month.
Yeah, I remember the first bottle of MCT oil.
Yeah, it's like $27 or something, and you're just like,
right. But it lasted me
a long time.
Geez, I want to say it lasted, I don't know, 3 or 4 months.
So when you calculate that, it's more like $10 a month, so it's doable.
So that's one of the first points.
Right. So the second one is that you're going to be hungry in a different way.
Yeah, how so? Talk to me.
I don't know if this is true for both men and women, but I know a lot of times when I was eating a diet full of carbs, I would be able to sit down and say, eat like a whole bunch of chips. I was never much of a potato chip person. I was more like a tortilla chip person, but it's the same scenario. Yeah. Where I could sit down and mindlessly eat something that was made out of carbs like that and still not get full. I would not feel full. So I would eat a lot more and a lot more often. I could eat that and then still sit down and eat a meal. And the keto lifestyle is different in the fact that once you get rid of your glycogen stores and you start putting in real food, you're going to get fuller faster, you're going to stay fuller longer, it's going to take less to fill you up when you start eating, because you're eating foods that have a lot of fat, they have higher quality protein, vegetables, things like that, where you just you'll get hungry still.
Right.
Obviously, you're still going to have hunger cues.
Right.
But it's not going, I have personally found that it's not quite that ravenous, bordering on binging feeling that sometimes you would get and I know I've seen this in my children, whenever they eat a lot of high carb foods, they could just eat and eat and eat and eat and they don't get full.
Right.
that to me is what I mean when I say that you're going to get hungry in a different way on keto.
All right. And I can, I think, I guess what I can add to that is I find that, because to be honest, I don't remember how hungry I was pre-keto days. I just don't remember. But I also don't remember, like what I did yesterday. So that's not all that unusual. So, but I do know that with keto, I'm not, versus before, when I do get hungry, and maybe this is what you were saying, it's not as just like
insane,
right? It feels like it's there. I know it's there, but it's not just crazy, and I just gotta go if I don't like gnaw my arm.
It's not like your belly button's rubbing a blister on your backbone, starvation.
Because I'm so right. So yeah.
Okay.
All right. So number 3, it's easier if you can cook and eat at home, where you can control your macros and what you're eating. So that's something we didn't know before.
And you can control food quality a little easier. You know what's in something for the most part. If you're cooking it, you're making it, you're able to look at the ingredients list and see what things are in it.
Right.
And it can be more difficult, especially if you're not if you're not a cook, if you're not naturally a cook, and that's not really something you enjoy. But that's what YouTube is here for, and channels like CJ's Keto Kitchen is to try and help you find some easy recipes that you can learn to make like a playlist, if you will, of familiar foods that you can then put in your diet.
Yeah, and I always, I watch a lot of YouTube. So I watch, Keto Connect, I watch Dr. Trot, I watch Papa G Low Carb. And when I look and I make comments about them, those are things that a lot of times I'm saying, hey, this is something that's great for my keto arsenal. That's what I will say, because it's something else. It's not necessarily something that we made, but it's another dish, another option that I have that I can say, oh, wow, that's a good recipe.
Yeah.
Or wow, that's a cool snack. Or wow, that's a cool, easy keto meal. And it's not necessarily coming from us.
So you have options.
Right, I have options. And I can say, okay, I don't have to have a rotisserie chicken every night.
Right.
I don't have to have, whatever my go-to thing is every night. I can switch it up, which then helps you be able to sustain keto longer in the long run.
And at the same time, what you were just saying, a rotisserie chicken, like we've stressed before on this channel, it's okay for things to be simple. It's okay for you to come home and have, a piece of meat, fat, and a vegetable.
And sometimes that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to be a gourmet cook. You don't have to be, making these fancy keto dishes every night. But it is easier to control what you're eating if you're doing it at home.
Yes, and that was the thing that we didn't know, is that if you're gonna cook, you can have some control over what you're eating.
It is a lot easier. And all of us, of course, are going to have times where we're traveling, or everybody else is going through the McDonald's drive-through and you just want to get something, and that's totally fine.
Right.
But it is easier for you to control your macros, to control your portions, the ingredients, all of that stuff, if you are buying food and preparing it.
You don't have the incident like I had a couple of weeks ago with the hidden carbs and
the breaded chicken that was supposed to be baked.
Chicken, right. Yeah. So you won't have those instances if you prepare your food yourself.
Right.
But again, we know that we all go out. It's just life. Number 4, there are more benefits to keto than weight loss.
This one, I knew personally that the benefit to keto, could also help long-term illnesses such as cancer, because that's how I initially got started with the ketogenic lifestyle. But there's also so many other things besides just your large diseases, your large illnesses. Obviously CJ used it to eradicate his diabetes.
Yeah, but if I'm totally honest, I didn't know that.
You didn't go into it.
I didn't go into keto knowing that keto was going to help, reverse my type 2 diabetes. I did not know that. I went and started keto because you were doing it.
Yeah.
I started because you were doing it, and I was already trying to lose weight.
Right.
And then when I started reading, researching, it was like, well, hey, why not? It's working. It makes sense. To me, it made logical sense just the whole thing about ketosis and switching from being a sugar burner to a fat burner, that made sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's I guess a whole.
But I guess there's a lot of things that we don't of non-scale victories that I didn't necessarily think of when I started this lifestyle. The lack of inflammation, just general overall aches and pains.
I didn't think about that. I didn't know anything about that.
And sometimes you don't realize it until after you've started keto that you will find those things. And also, that the ketogenic lifestyle can help with anxiety, it can help with depression, it can help with a lot of other things that you don't necessarily think of because you're thinking about weight loss, and that is a definite benefit.
Yeah, and you mentioned depression. When I started keto, I had been diagnosed with being what's the word? Clinically depressed. Is that how you say it?
And I think you had some seasonal depression too.
And I think I had seasonal depression.
Both of us came from a history of depression where we had both taken medication at points in our lives.
But I do know that since I started keto, and I did not know this would be a benefit, that my mood is a lot more, it's even.
Stable.
A lot more stable. I don't have the ups and downs.
Which surely must have something to do with sugar and its,
that's a good point.
And your blood sugar.
That's a good point.
In controlling your mood and being stable.
Yeah.
In a constant stable
but
state.
I don't, sure, I mean, I have days that are blah, and I don't feel...
Right, keto is not like this giant Band-Aid that's going to cover all your ailments, and it's, you're never going to feel an ache and pain, you're not going to get sick with the common cold.
Yeah, we're not
like
saying that.
No.
But I do know, as a person who actually probably was depressed for years and years and years and didn't even know that's what I was, that since I've been on keto, that it is definitely, my mood has definitely changed, and I'm a lot more even keel, just in how I deal with a lot of things, and so
even in just your stress management, it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Let's see, is that it?
We got one more.
Oh yeah, what's the one more?
Number 5.
Oh yeah. Not everyone is going to support your keto choice. Yeah. And so now we had each other.
Right.
We had each other, and I didn't even think about, but I didn't know, I guess, that keto was so maybe controversial. I didn't know that,
word.
And really didn't even care, but I didn't know that before I started, and it wouldn't have made any difference to me. In fact,
you're a rebel.
Yeah, I am a rebel. I'm kind of a rebel anyway, and so if it's going against what everybody else is doing, I'm probably going to gravitate going toward that way anyway.
The salmon's swimming upstream.
Yeah, but everyone's not going to support your keto choice.
And I think you learn along the way what to say, who you can tell more about it. Yeah. You'll just find that sometimes just if you say something small and they seem interested, then you just keep talking about it. But, there are some people who are just going to ask you a random question and they really don't want to know, and then you can just leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had, when I first started keto, I was super excited and I was telling everybody about it, and people were seeing the changes in my body and the weight I was dropping. And so people would ask me questions. But like Sarah said, I kind of learned after a while that, wait a minute, people don't necessarily want to know everything you know.
Or you might say something about it and they'll think, or say, that's so weird, or, they'll make a negative reaction to it. And that's okay.
And that's just it. So there's something going on about Jillian Michaels.
Oh, yeah.
And she was on, I think,
a tirade about you should never go on the ketogenic
keto,
diet.
And I saw something on, I'm not sure if it was just on the Steve Harvey show where she was at. I saw the interview. But it was funny because actually Steve Harvey said something about, so Jillian Michaels said whatever she said, and then Steve Harvey was like, well, I heard that was dangerous. And I'm sitting there listening to it. I'm like, dude, you don't know shit. And I'm sorry. But
if your kids are watching,
right,
you don't know poop.
I apologize. But when I heard him say that, it was like, you don't know anything about what you're talking about. But here's a person that I guess you perceive as an authority, because that's why he had on his show.
Right.
He perceived her as a health authority.
But see, this is the thing, is that Jillian Michaels might be considered an authority in her field, but not everyone can lose weight the way that Jillian Michaels has lost weight.
Right.
Through, calorie restriction and intense cardio and things like that. Not everyone has the genetics, the willpower, the situation, the money, whatever the case may be, to lose weight in the way that she has. And so that's the thing, it's worked out wonderfully for her, and I'm sure it's worked out for millions of other people, and that's great. But there doesn't have to be one way for everyone.
Right. But I thought it was, I'm like, really, Steve Harvey? You're going to throw that out there when it's obviously...
Because it's trendy.
You don't know anything about what you're talking about, but you're going to throw out what you've heard.
Right.
What you've heard about it, and you threw it out on your show.
Just because celebrities do the ketogenic diet does not make it wrong. It does not make it a fad. This diet has been around since the 20s, fighting epilepsy in children. So just because people have latched onto it now as the latest fad does not make it bad, does not make it ineffective.
Right.
It just means that we're going through a change in the way this lifestyle is perceived.
Right.
So.
Right. And so again, everybody's not going to support your keto choice.
Especially people who are probably of a certain age, that were around in the 60s and 70s and saw, the dietary guidelines change and thought that was for the better because, we'd been through that. We had Atkins in the 70s and it didn't work and blah, 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 blah. So sometimes it depends on what your exposure has been.
But I'll say this. I think people think they know a lot more about nutrition and health than they know.
Right.
I said something to somebody at work the other day, and I won't go into all the details, but immediately they spouted off, wow, that sounds like it's dangerous, or that's not healthy. And as I heard their comment, I was thinking, I don't know if I think that you are a nutritional expert, or that I believe everything that you say, because what you're saying is just what you've heard, what you're regurgitating, what we've been all fed for years. You're not coming at me with a bunch of research. You're not coming at me with maybe, hey, all the things that we've been taught have been off, and we can look at our society and tell that it's been off. You're coming at me from all the stuff that we've been fed. That we've been fed all these years.
Well, and the fact of the matter is for the last 40 years, we have been taught to do a certain thing with the dietary guidelines in the United States, and it's not working. People are getting fatter, people are getting sicker. Right. So, it's not working. And yes, the ketogenic diet may not be for everyone. It might not be for your great Aunt Sally. It might not work for certain people. But it's not a bad diet, and it's not a dangerous diet.
Right.
And if it works for you, and you try it, and you like it, then keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
Right. Do
what works for you.
Do what works for you. And that's kind of how we looked at it. We aren't physicians, we aren't doctors, we aren't giving medical advice, but it works. It has worked for us.
I have lost weight multiple times.
Oh,
as have you.
Oh, yeah. I've been down the weight loss road before.
This is the longest I have kept off a weight loss.
I have lost 50 plus pounds before.
I have as well. But I have never kept the weight off for this long.
Right.
Because I'm going on 2 years with a 70 plus pound weight loss. I've never kept it off for that long.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that other diets can't work, but I know for myself, this is the only diet, lifestyle I like to call it, where I have kept the weight off for almost years.
And it's been sustainable. And yeah, I can say the same thing. I have lost weight multiple ways, different ways. I've lost weight on Weight Watchers. I've lost weight.
Calories in, calories out, exercise.
I've bust my ass in the gym. I've lifted weights. I've lost weight all kinds of different ways, but this has been the most sustainable way for me to continue to keep the weight off. Up until and it's been basically almost 2 years, like you said. This has been the most sustainable way, and this is not on our notes, but I don't feel deprived. We're gonna add a bonus in.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
we're gonna do a bonus
So
6.
we're gonna do number 6. So I
'Cause
wish
we like
I wish
even.
people would have told me that I wouldn't be deprived on keto.
That's because it's not like a diet.
Yeah.
Using my air quotes here, a diet. It's
Yeah.
not. There isn't that level of. Well, you're not. For most people, even people who count their macros, you're not doing a lot of calorie counting. You're not doing a lot of having to write everything down. There are some people who do that, and they
Sure.
find that effective. But
Sure.
it's not.
I've tracked my macros
Essential.
on keto. Right. I've tracked my macros before.
You can lose weight on keto without doing those things. There's lots of people who do.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who do.
So it doesn't feel like a traditional diet in a lot of senses.
Right. And I was listening to an interview from the Low Carb Cruise, and it was a panel discussion, and they were talking about one of the nutritionists who I think is kind of practices keto with her clients. She talked about how she's really careful when she's telling people how to do things, how to do keto, and she actually doesn't have them track. And again, this conversation is not about whether you should track or should not track. You do whatever you want to do. But she said the reason she doesn't have her clients track is because then it kind of goes back in their brain to the diets they did previously.
I was listening to a podcast and they had Dr. Westman on, and his was from a low carb conference last year, and he was saying the same thing. In his practice in North Carolina, he has to toe that same line where he gives them the list of what he would like them to do, but that he doesn't really want them to write it down. He doesn't want, because the idea is to keep this as a lifestyle and to have it be as fluid as possible so that it doesn't feel like programs you've been on before.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like a diet. And we try not to talk about this as a diet because that's not really how I look on it. I mean, it has helped me to lose weight, but this is just kind of how I live now. This is just life.
Right.
So, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So those are just some of the things that we wish we would have known about keto before we got started.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's some things that we missed. We'd love to hear maybe some things that you thought of.
Yeah.
We like to hear those in the comments below. Feel free to write us. And if there's anything that you have an issue with what we said, you can talk about that as well. So I don't think we have anything else to talk about.
No. If you like this type of content, please be sure and hit the like button. So that helps us know if these type of topics are things that you're interested in. That kind of gives us
that's true.
a little help there in that way.
Yeah, because we're always trying to think of topics to talk about for the Keto Conversations.
Yeah.
So we do these Keto Conversations every Wednesday. We do new recipes on Sunday. And if you like what you're seeing, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Like Arnold, I'll be back.
Yeah.
I have to have some dorkiness.
Yeah.
This is what you've come to expect from CJ's Keto Kitchen, right?
That's true.
That's why you keep coming back.
I love your dorkiness.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys.